shifting shame into neutral. Happy Monday. It is Monday, almost 2 o'clock on a Monday morning, and one of the windmills is spinning and the other one isn't. Spoiler alert. Headed to Wakefern in Keysby, New Jersey, so I can get back for a doctor appointment this afternoon. Wish me luck. A little less condensation on the windshield now. Just leaving Wakefern in Keysby, New Jersey. Something happened when I was unloading my truck that made me feel ashamed, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. I feel completely over it now. I handled it well, but while
Continue 1/4 mile to the end of the street, then turn right.
Look at the geese, and then remember the geese in Thomas O'Malley Cat. Oh, what is that called? The Aristocats. And if you remember the geese and how they walk, that's how they walk. They look just like that.
At the end of the street, turn right.
Anyway, back to feeling ashamed. I bumped into a skid with one of the pallet jacks walking while you ride on it. And they're pretty twitchy and quick. And I kind of pride myself on being
turn right
quick
on Riverside Drive.
But I got rattled. And that's something else I should talk about. I don't want to blame anything, any of my childhood or any of my people, my parents or teachers or anyone or coaches, because the kind of reaction I feel sometimes when I get ashamed or when I get rattled, I think it's neurological. I think it's
in 1.5
the
miles,
way I'm wired.
The ramp on the right to Route 440 south toward I-287.
I think I came out of the womb that way. And I have some relatives of all generations that I know about that have the same kind of reaction to things. And I don't think the way we are raised makes a difference. The way we are nurtured or not nurtured makes a difference. But I think a lot of it has to do with just our DNA and how that takes shape in us. So I got rattled because there was stuff in the way where I was supposed to unload my fruit punch. I had a whole load of fruit punch, and the staging area had skids all ready to go out on another trailer, a ShopRite trailer, and they had a combination of things on them, and that was interesting, but they were in my way. And then as I was unloading, I was putting things somewhere else, and somebody came by, one of the lumpers came by and started to move the stuff that I had put out there and told me I couldn't put it there. Where I'm supposed to put it wasn't available, so I got rattled.
5.1 miles.
And then I bumped into one of my own skids. Thankfully, I didn't bump into one of their skids. And a gallon of fruit punch popped, broke open and spilled all over the floor.
Keep left.
Pretty close to right in front of where I would need to go to get the rest of the load unloaded. And this was after only 3 or 4 skids out of 19 that I had to unload. So I had to take a lot more product through the mess I had just made. It was just 1 gallon of fruit punch out of a whole truck full, so it wasn't like I caused a lot of monetary loss. Get across the road here. But then it was just, for some reason, it was like when people say don't cry over spilled milk. I just felt awful, and I wanted to hide myself. I wanted to hide what I had done, even though it wasn't immoral or anything. It was just a mistake, an honest mistake that a kid could make, and that we could shame that kid for,
Take the
because
ramp on the
shame
right.
can be taught.
420 south toward
I've noticed
287.
many times when we teach people to be ashamed, when they do honest mistakes, maybe they were not trying hard enough to be careful or whatever, but who hasn't made a mistake like that? Especially with the twitchy pallet jack. And so there we were, me, myself, and I, all of my childhood, everything, all up there in the front. I had tears in my eyes. I was angry and ashamed and frustrated like any 4-year-old. And I don't know that I'm a normal person. I mean, I can pretend to be normal, but when that reaction comes over me, I don't feel like I'm within normal parameters, because I can react so strongly to things like that. And the same thing with my rejection sensitive dysphoria. It isn't reasonable. The response isn't within reasonable parameters. And so I feel I don't see many grown-ups exhibiting the kind of facial expressions I felt on my face. I don't, you know, most grown-ups know how to react reasonably when things go badly. If it, you know, but it's not a catastrophe. But that was tough for me. It brought back lots of memories of my childhood and how I reacted to things then.
Exit right.
Be in the right lane.
In 0.1 miles, continue straight.
I'm assuming this guy has to get over so he can get on the turnpike, because he's probably not going to the Raritan Center.
Continue straight.
In 1/2 mile, keep right to I-95
In
south,
half a mile,
then keep left.
right. In 1/4 mile, keep right.
Let's see what he does here. Maybe he is going to the Raritan Center.
Keep right to I-95 south, then keep left.
Yes, so. Oh, he got over.
Keep right.
Expect the worst when you're
Be in
planning.
either of the two
In
left
half a
lanes.
mile, keep left.
Because if I had been right up next to him when we went through there, he would have been shit out of luck. Or I would have been, or we both would have been. A lot of being a professional driver is guessing what odd things other drivers will do. Heroes of Ukraine! How we blame Putin for U.S. imperialism. So I got rattled more than I think a reasonable person would.
Continue on I-95.
And I got more ashamed than I think a reasonable person would. The other thing that bothered me is I got back to my truck and my safety score had gone from 100% to 97%. And I know the only reason it went down is because I was on the New Jersey Turnpike and our Samsara device, ELD device, doesn't know what the speed limits are. A couple of times as I was watching, she thought I was supposed to be going 25 and I was going 65 or 55 twice. It was two different times, and just crazy. It's just completely arbitrary. And then you get a big speeding fine, not money, but you get dinged on your safety score because you're at the mercy of this stupid system that doesn't know what the actual speed limit is. That kind of thing, I think, bothers me more than it should. I don't want to should on myself, but I think it bothers me out of proportion to what's reasonable. Or what should be reasonable. as opposed to changing my thoughts, like trying to keep certain thoughts out of my head, I will instead shift how I feel about the things that are happening or the things that are in my head. I just shift into neutral, because between every gear is neutral, and then I don't really feel any particular way about things. And as I was there, tears streaming out or popping out of my angry eyes there in the Wakeford distribution center, I tried, and I was successful shifting into neutral. And then by the time I was done trying to find a mop to clean up the mess, they said they would send a machine to clean it up because they didn't have a mop, and nobody came to clean it up. So I had to take a cardboard box and try to sop up some of it so I could get the rest of the product through the way I needed to go. And in that process, I was trying to shift myself into neutral as I finished unloading. And by the time I finished unloading, I was mostly composed and self-soothing. And also there were a couple of people there who were very helpful. Somebody else helped me move some product out of the way and made it possible for me to, and showed me where to put the rest of my load. So that helps. But I don't want always the kindness of other people for how I'm handling my own emotions. So I'd say that as frustrated as I was, and as ashamed as I was, it didn't take me as long as usual to get out of it, because I put into practice that idea of shifting into neutral. And then I talked to some other drivers after I got back to the driver room, and by then I was fine. By then I had things back in proportion, because it wasn't a catastrophe. There was no reason to react to it as though it were. And if it had been a catastrophe, I don't think the emotions for me are that much different. So perhaps even if it's catastrophic, I can shift myself to neutral long enough to help other people who may need help. If it really is catastrophic, then other people will need help. And to get myself to the place where I can deal with things, and I'll be okay. Because we'll always be okay if we can deal with the emotions we're feeling. We can always deal with the aftermath of anything that happens if we can do that.
Police reported ahead.
She said, police reported ahead, and before I could see it, I saw people scooting over. So I thought, okay, there must be up ahead. And there were two vehicles, police vehicles, and now there's just one. You notice I had to slow down there, but it didn't take me by surprise. It wasn't like a reaction. It was, I was all ready to slow down, and then I just did. And that's where, if you think Waze is a good thing for navigation, it's even better for anticipating hazards. So I would say everybody should drive with Waze on, especially on freeways, so that you can anticipate when you might need to scoot over. By law, you have to scoot over if there's a police vehicle or a tow pole, other with yellow blinking lights or blue blinking lights. You have to get over. And if you don't have much time, that anticipation can really help you. It could even save people's lives. And I'm sure in the time I've used it that it has. Because that sound comes on, or she says hazard reported ahead, and you know, my mind always attends to that at some level. The reason I wanted to talk about shame is because as as I've said in the past, it is crippling when it comes to being a non-toxic person. If you're trying to be non-toxic, shame will keep you from being non-toxic. When you're ashamed of something, it's hard to own up to it and confess it and deal with it reasonably. And when you're hiding things about you that you're ashamed of, you're not your best self. You'll lie, you'll fudge things, you'll cover things up, you won't be authentic. And you have to be authentic if you're going to be non-toxic. So if you're able to shift shame
Hazard reported ahead.
let's see what hazard. Yep, there's a hazard up ahead. The shoulder is closed, and there are vehicles on the other side of the cones. So definitely something you don't want to run into. When you see drivers or workers outside of their vehicles, then you definitely want to be over at least half a lane if you have room on the other side. So I guess the point I was trying to make is that shame can keep you from being authentic because you're trying to hide things that you're ashamed of. If you can own up to the things that cause pain or distress to other people and to yourself, then you will be a lot healthier and you'll set a good example for other people.
Police reported ahead.
So you think when she says police reported ahead, you're going to slow down and keep from getting a ticket, or in my case, you'll get out of that left lane that you're not supposed to be in a truck. And that's true, that is a good use, but the main reason, or the main help, is that when there's a police vehicle and it has stopped another vehicle, or it's just over there on the road, you have to scoot over. So you have to check on your left side and make sure you can. Sometimes the police vehicle will be on the left side of the road. So it's really good to have that advance warning. In this case, the police vehicle had left already, but I was ready just in case. Probably the most devastating thing that shame does is keeps you from feeling worthy. And if you don't feel worthy, you don't set boundaries. You don't stand up for yourself, and you don't manifest very well. If you don't believe you're worthy of the good things you wish you had in your life, the universe doesn't respond well to that energy. You send out a certain kind of energy when you feel worthy. And I'm not saying arrogant, and I'm not saying entitled. I'm saying that you feel like a good person. And when you feel like a good person with good values, good behaviors, you do feel worthy of the good things that the universe wants to give you. And then those things happen, they come into your life. And when you don't feel worthy, you put up with a lot of bad things. And you also, I think, are more willing to deal out bad things to other people when you feel ashamed. I think a lot of people who mistreat other people do so out of a fundamental bedrock assumption that they're good people. I can't imagine that bullies feel good about themselves and think that they're good people. But psychopaths, that might be a different story. And yes, you do have to set boundaries to be a good person. For your own sake, you have to be good to yourself, but you also have to show other people, like your own children or students, what it looks like to set boundaries. You do it for other people's sake as well as for your own sake. So in addition to making you feel horrible, shame has a lot of other toxic side effects. People react to you differently worthy of good things, you just can't pull it off. You don't feel that way about yourself. It's difficult to be around pets or other animals when you feel ashamed, because they pick up on it. Children in a classroom pick up on it. Your own children and grandchildren pick up on it when you feel ashamed. Your partner feels something, and other people that you're close to, or even not close to, other people who are sensitive and empathic and empathetic. And sometimes it's good because somebody will put their arm around your shoulders and cheer you up. But if you're trying to be a conqueror, you're not going to do it when you feel ashamed. So if you can shift into neutral, like we were talking about before, you'll find that you give yourself time to think and time to be reasonable. We've talked about this with other emotions that are difficult to deal with. You can just shift into a neutral place, and after that, you'll be able to be more rational and logical and find some reasons not to feel that way. But in the pangs of it, you don't have that logic and that reasonable feeling. And if there are demons, whether they be physical, metaphysical, or both, they will throw shame at you as a very potent weapon. If there is a conspiracy in the universe or in the world or in your neighborhood or in your own just life circumstances, if there are people or entities working against you to throw you off your game, to rattle you and keep you from being effective and keep you from manifesting well, then shifting into neutral puts them in a place, I'm sure, where they are weeping and gnashing their teeth. If they really want to harm you or destroy you, and they can't make you feel certain emotions and get you out of your sweet spot, out of your zone, your power zone, then they'll be really frustrated. And that's a great thing. Wanted to show you the log in the middle of that load. Back in Oregon, we'd always take pictures of one log loads. That's not a one log load, but that log is still pretty impressive there in the middle.
Traffic on your route.
Okay, here is your dad joke for the day. Their fruit is very appealing. Appealingfruit.com. If you get an email from me about canned meat, don't open it. It's spam.
In 3/4 of a mile, arrive at home, on the right.